of you that are here, I'm excited to introduce Evan Madlinger. Evan Madlinger is the acting state conservationist with the USDA Natural Resources and Conservation Service, usually known as NRCS. He received his Bachelor's of Science degrees in Wildlife Management from Ohio State University. He's had a long career with NRCS that started in 1998. And in that time, he's worked as a soil conservationist in the Freehold and Service Center, covering a variety of offices. More recently, he was the NRCS state biologist and then was recently appointed to be the state resource conservationist. He has a wealth of knowledge about every single, you've probably been involved in just about every single kind of practice NRCS offers, and we're just so thrilled to have you here to kind of discuss NRCS programs and how they can work for landowners and even sometimes municipalities. So thank you, Evan.
No, awesome, Bridget. And thanks for that introduction for sure. And thank you guys for jumping in here on this. I just quick look at the names. I recognize a few of you on here. So, but it's good. I'm glad you guys are here. And I guess Bridget told me, unfortunately, you guys can't speak, so it'll be in the chat. But yeah, we'll keep this kind of low key. And I told Bridget, feel free to interrupt me if we get some questions that pop in or whatever. And we'll kind of just get through this. And I'm going to touch on kind of some of our programs here, a little bit about who NRCS is, if you're not real sure. And then I have a bunch of kind of practice pictures that we can go through too, and we can even, I always like talking technical stuff too. So if we want to talk a little technical, that's fine by me too. So let me just see here, make sure I got it clicked right here. Okay, so we'll start right away with who NRCS is. And I always kind of like to start at the beginning, so this is a picture of the Dust Bowl, and a lot of you guys probably remember from history class that we had a lot of migration of people out west, and they started farming out there, kind of tore up these, deep-rooted prairie grasses to, plant crops and, graze livestock. And, between that farming activity and then a very prolonged, several-year drought that basically caused the Dust Bowl, we had severe erosion. I don't think any of us were around, but, apparently even here on the East Coast, big dust clouds would come, and come across the East Coast here. So, basically, it was determined that there needed to be something done. There needed to be an agency that could work with private landowners voluntarily to get them to protect their soils and stop erosion, stop the wind erosion, the sheet and rill erosion, the gully erosion. And it was basically recognizing that, it's pretty neat. We have a cool publication that talks about how, all these great, empires throughout history have fallen because they haven't taken care of their soils, and so this was recognized, and they realized the United States had to do a better job. At the time, they didn't want big government, infringing on private farmers and ranchers. So they basically made the government agency voluntary, a voluntary agency. So we don't force our will, we don't regulate, we voluntarily work with private landowners. And this is actually a picture of our founder, Hugh Hammond Bennett, and this was some early conservation here of some contour strips. And I wish we'd see more of these in New Jersey, but we see a lot in Pennsylvania when you cross over the river here, and so still practices that are used today. So again, we're kind of the environmental arm. We're a part of USDA. We're really the prime agency that for the federal government as a whole that works with private landowners. There's some smaller programs. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has a really good program, Partners for Fish and Wildlife, but primarily we're kind of the big interface here between the federal government and private landowners, and working with them to do good environmental practices. Some people may have been around for a while. We used to be called the Soil Conservation Service. It was in the early 90s when they changed our name to the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and that was really a reflection upon the fact that we work on way more than just soils. Geez, my dog. Hold on one sec here. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. He was sleeping. I forgot all about him. I was going to throw him in the crate. But anyway, so we changed our name to the Natural Resource Conservation Service to better reflect working on a multitude of resources, not just soils. We write conservation plans. The big thing what we do, working with landowners, we'll meet with them, find out what their goals and objectives are, and capture those in a plan. Again, all voluntary, but it's a plan of what they want to work towards to be a better farmer, better steward of their land. We already talked about not being non-regulatory. And one of the big things is we cover every county and every possession in the United States. So really anywhere you go, whether it's the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, or any state, Alaska to Hawaii, NRCS has an office that covers that area. Okay. This is just showing a couple pictures here of the fact that we have a bunch of specialists. So we have engineers on staff, we have soil scientists on staff. Bridget mentioned I was a biologist before I became SRC here. We have grazing specialists, agronomists, a lot of different professionals make up NRCS. Foresters. We don't have a forester in New Jersey, but some states have foresters. And here's kind of our breakout in office locations throughout the state. So you can kind of see they're color coded there. We have 6 field offices. Hackettstown's our northern one. That kind of is that light blue area. Frenchtown covers the middle kind of greenish color there. The kind of tannish color is our Freehold office. Then Columbus covers, Burlington Ocean, Camden. Then we have our Woodstown and Vineland offices, which cover the southern parts there, you can see. So we also have a plant material center, Cape May Plant Material Center, where they do a lot of research and development of conservation plants that they release for private industry, which is kind of neat. And we also have a soil science office. A lot of you that have heard NRCS may have been because of our soil maps. That's kind of what we're famous for too. NRCS is in charge of all the soil mapping across the country. So I'm going to talk a little bit about programs. That's the money side of this, and everybody likes hearing about. And so we get our funding through the Farm Bill. Farm Bill is a huge piece of legislation, but there's conservation dollars in the Farm Bill, and that's what funds us. So we're working off the 2018 Farm Bill right now. They run about every 5 years. The Farm Bill's 5-6 years. And again, our main focus is to provide cost sharing to landowners, fix environmental problems, on the land. And then we do this through a series of standards, conservation standards. So NRCS really isn't like a research organization. We get our research and stuff from universities and other, federal agencies. And then with that information, we make technical standards, which basically are like recipes for how to do good conservation on the ground. And so if you follow those recipes, you're ensured a high level of success with implementing these practices on the landscape. Programs and not so much our tech guide, but different things will change based on the Farm Bill. We get new acronyms, new programs, new focuses, every time there's a new Farm Bill. But most of it does kind of stay the same, tends to be. So I mentioned, private land. You've heard me say it a few times, and I didn't want to touch on the municipal aspect of this because I know some of you are involved in municipal lands. Historically, NRCS had worked on all types of land except for federal land. And then, I don't know, maybe 10-ish, 15 years ago, they kind of changed and really want us to focus solely on private land. However, we do, there is kind of some workarounds that we do work on public land. And a lot of times what we do with that is if there's a nonprofit, we can work through a nonprofit. They could, if there's a good example, this might be like a state wildlife management area. We have some agreements with New Jersey Audubon, where New Jersey Audubon has a management agreement with the state for that wildlife management area, and then they can hold a contract with us, and we work through them. And there's a lot of opportunities for that. A lot of different nonprofits we work with kind of have worked that way before. I do think this could change again. I think it could open up a little bit more. I don't think we'll ever be able to use our dollars on federal lands because there's some legislation against that. But on state and municipal land, I could see it kind of going the other way. And we'll talk about why that might start to creep back a little bit as I get further in the presentation. But the other thing that's a little bit of a limiting factor is we really need to be focused on agriculture or forest land. So what I'm getting at here is that as it is right now through a lot of our programs, it really needs to be targeted at working land. So we can kind of take a loose interpretation on that. If it's a park, but it's really more of a naturalized park, a lot of woods and stuff, and it could, be managed as forest, we could look at that. Agriculture is pretty straightforward. We get a little bit of trouble when we try to do things or we can't do things really where it's pure at this point where it's, there's no nexus to working land. So for instance, we'll talk a little bit, we do dam removal. I know there's some great dams that are in the middle of a town. There's really no working lands around it. That makes it a little bit harder right now for us to fund, but that may change a little bit more in the future too. So we'll talk about that. And, if you have a project you ever think is interesting, or you want us to take a look and see if it's something that would be eligible, I mean, any of those field offices, we can answer that question in a matter of a couple minutes, just looking at a site. And I put my email on here too, if you ever wanted to reach out to me. All right. So the first program, and whenever I talk about these programs, I always say, I don't want you guys focusing so much on the names. I mean, you can, it's good to know, and the acronyms, but the reality is really I just want you to pay attention to as I go through these things and talk about the different things we do. If any of this sounds interesting and you think there's an option, a possibility of getting involved in some of our programs, that's really our job to figure out. We'll figure out what program fits best for you when you come in. So the big takeaway here is just looking at some of the stuff I'm going to talk about and see if it's maybe something that, you might have an interest in or a good project in mind. So EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, that's our biggest program. We get $5-6 million a year in that. We provide 60 to 90% cost sharing. So that's how NRCS works. Some people kind of say grants. It's not really grants, it's a cost share. We have set rates. So if we say, you want to plant some trees, to make a buffer, and we say that we'll have a cost share rate that says, well, these size 1 gallon containerized trees, cost X amount of dollars an acre. And that's that's like a rate that we assign it. And so you can spend $1 million on planting those trees or $1 planting those trees or no money even, and we'll cost share that rate, whatever that is, acres per tree. So that's how we work. So we call this a cost share. We do kind of have a heavy agricultural focus, livestock, cropland. We talked a little about forestry and wildlife. We have some special initiatives focused on organic. This program has initiatives focused on energy and organic and seasonal high tunnels. And I'll get into working lands for wildlife a little bit. And then there's also these CAP plans, conservation activity plans. So these are plans that you can apply for to get written. So the most common one is a forestry plan. You can get a forestry plan written. We'll cost share on that forest plan. So that's very popular. A CNMP or nutrient management plans, another popular one if you're a livestock farmer. That's a plan that addresses your manure and what you're doing with it. It's another kind of big thing. So and then we do things like energy audits. We have fish and wildlife plans. We have pollinator plans. A bunch of different stuff that we can help with there. So this example, even though we've been around for a long time and we've done a lot of good work, unfortunately we still see resource concerns on the landscape. And so this is pretty common, erosion coming off crop fields, especially after some of these storms we've been getting nowadays, right? You see this brown water running off the field and you see some erosion. So this is a bread and butter thing that we look to fix for us. And it could be fixed through, better farming practices, sometimes better soil health. But sometimes it's more of like a structural practice. So this is what we call a grass waterway. It's a parabolic kind of shaped water conveyance that, we get that water off the site safely. It's all grass, so the water's cleaner, and we stop the erosion. So very much a bread and butter practice. Here's another one. The grass really hasn't come up on this one as much, but this is a diversion, another kind of bread and butter practice. So you can kind of see that we've got pretty good slope running from right to left. And that was running through this farmer's pasture. So you kind of build up this this mound here that kind of stops the water from running through his pasture, and it redirects it, down the side to a safe outlet. So another very common practice for us. Here again, another picture of resource concern, something we see, a little bit too common still on a landscape is, this is classic when you have cows that are getting access to a stream. Cows love to hang out in the streams. They'll just stand there all day long, especially in the summer, totally happy. And that really beats down the banks. You see there's no shade on this stream. There's no vegetation. The stream gets wide because it's getting trampled down. So, definitely something that's a problem. And, I guess I could touch on this here too. Some people say, well, why are you taking our tax dollars and fixing a situation like this on the landscape? Well, we all drink that water, right? Or, or eventually, or people use it, right? Or water quality is important for all of us, right? So that's really where we get at. So even though you may live on in a condo in town, this is still, addressing these kind of issues are still things that affect your life and affect the well-being of residents in New Jersey and really throughout the country. So anyway, when we run into a situation like this, we try to control access. We'll get the cows fenced out of the stream. We'll build this nice wet crossing here. This actually isn't completely finished yet. There'll be some side fencing on either side here. And then the gates will be closed, so the cows can't hang out here, in the stream anymore. So it's a real nice environmental uplift practice we do here for this. There's another one, we call this a heavy use area. This is basically like seasonal housing or bad weather housing for animals. So, when you have animals out, they eat and they poop, right? So when it's frozen ground or there's snow on the ground, or if it's, bad weather, we build these structures here that the farmer can house their cattle in. It's not meant for long-term housing, but, a couple weeks at a time. Often, here's a picture of the cows in there. You see it's in the winter, you see snow on the ground, and they'll be fed in there. And then, they basically, the rule of thumb is 80% of the manure that comes out of a cow is around where they eat. So they have these bales in here, the manure is here. This bedded pack of manure is actually good for the cows in the winter, help keeps them warm. It's comfortable. They actually lay on it. It's a kind of mix of manure and food. And then in the summer, or, in the spring, when they start getting back out again, the farmer can scrape this paddle up. There's actually, it was hard to tell in that first picture, but there's a 3-walled kind of structure in the back that you can push this manure to when it gets to be too much. You can push it. And we typically give the guys like a 3-month storage. There's sometimes even 6-month storage where they can store that manure and then spread it at a more appropriate time when on the ground, when the crops and the grasses and whatnot can use those nutrients. So yeah, another good popular practice we do. Irrigation, particularly in South Jersey. I mean, we do irrigation in North Jersey, but South Jersey's, there's a lot of irrigation, big, flat, large crop fields. So we'll do, this is a blueberry farm, but micro irrigation, getting away from those overhead guns and sprinklers and getting very precise with where the water is being applied right at the roots of the plant. So that's something we help with for sure is more efficient irrigation. Even these bigger center pivots, if you have the right nozzles on them, way more efficient to irrigate this way than, just shooting, water out of a sprinkler, over a field and losing lots of evaporation. You get runoff. This could be a lot more precise. A lot of these things even are run off computers and stuff. And so it's pretty impressive what they can do. Soil health is a big thing. Bridget, RC&D is big on this, really trying to have something green on these farm fields all year round, good for erosion, good for soil health. It's really fascinating. Even as a biologist, I love when we get into talking about the ecosystem that is our soil underneath these crop fields. And so this is a kind of you can see the corn's come off and this, cover crop's been planted here. It'll help hold the soil. It'll be here over the winter. There's some tillage radish mixed in with some other stuff here that's good for the soil. So this is another bread and butter, really important thing that NRCS promotes is good soil health. And lastly, urban ag. So this is something we were into, 20 years ago, kind of got away from it a little bit. And now it's coming back full force. The chief of NRCS, my agency, really wants us involved in urban ag. He came from Ohio where they had a pretty big program. And the agency, we're doing a lot of things right now kind of focused around urban ag and food deserts. And, I think a lot of this was really on display in COVID where, how hard it is for some people to get food. The fact that, you have to walk even a half a mile, half a mile is not a big deal. We'll walk a half a mile with a bunch of grocery bags, and see how you do, if you're living in the city here. So this is something that's definitely on NRCS's radar. And we've been putting in a lot of work lately on trying to develop our urban ag program here. Okay, I talked about forestry a little bit. So we have a forestry incentive with EQIP. I told you we can help with a forest plan. We can provide money to help you implement forestry. Could be anything from some thinning to invasive species control, helping with access so you can manage your woods if you can't get in there, geared towards wildlife. We've done wetland enhancement. And oftentimes we'll work very closely with a consultant forester oftentimes you might, landowner might already have a forester, and we'll work closely with them to make sure we're in concert with what we're all trying to do there on the property. Got a bunch of different practices here. This is just a little smattering here. Prescribed burning. A lot of people have been talking about that lately. That's a really nice tool that we can use in our woods. Tree and shrubs, forest trails and landings. So that's, access to your forest sites. We've even done some stream habitat work in the woods. So a lot of interesting things going on forestry wise. This is just a picture. This is, sometimes it's just a couple landowners with some chainsaws doing some thinning. It's prescribed in their forest plan. Sometimes it's a little more intense. We do some pretty intense habitat work on some of these woods, where you actually need some bigger equipment to do that. And the same kind of thing in the pinelands, where they're thinning. And now in the pinelands, oftentimes this will be related around fire protection as well. There's a few things really actually scarier when you're down in pine barrens to these overstocked pitch pine stands. When you get these, they're just a tinderbox at times waiting to happen. There's been a lot of bad forest fires over the last, 150 years down there. And, there's still some areas that they're worried about. Definitely can be highly flammable, the pine barrens forest. So thinning them down is good. Thinning is also good in a situation like this too. It helps with southern pine beetle, which has really exploded down there. That's a bit of a symptom of trees being overstocked too close together, not as healthy and vigorous. And we've seen a real explosion of southern pine beetle, not just in southern New Jersey, but also even in Long Island. Here's a good example. This actually was you can't really tell, it was a buffer planting an extension to the right. Looking at this picture, it's actually a pollen scale, and this was a repair and buffer planting that we did here. So, common thing that we will often do. Here's some classic invasive control. You can see we sprayed some barberry here. You can see kind of behind the stone wall there that it was a neighbor's property where they didn't spray, and then you can see here where we sprayed. So pretty big difference. Getting rid of some barberry there. Sometimes we can help pay. I mean, this is like a forestry mower. This is when things get pretty intense. You get those fields of like solid autumn olive that are 20 feet tall and can't even walk through. That's when you might want to think about bringing one of these guys in, and they can really knock back bigger vegetation. Does a good job, and this is expensive to do. This costs probably $1,500 a day to have a guy like this come out and do that for you. And this is where NRCS can step in, and maybe we can cover $800-900 of that $1,500. That's where that's a great example of where our cost sharing can come in to play. And at least, invasive species management is forever. You're going to, unfortunately, it's just, we got to live with it. We got to try to manage it depending on what your goals are. But getting a machine like this can really set it back to a point where a landowner can manage it on their own, where, if you've got a field just taken over with autumn olive, you're not going to be able to get a handle on that, just running around with, a handsaw and even Roundup or something. It's not going to do it. So bringing this in is good, and this is where we can help. I mentioned prescribed burning. So this was a site that we had done. We had done a forestry cut on this site. We're managing for oaks, and hickories on this particular site. Sometimes in North Jersey, you'll get a lot of birch coming in that competes with some more desirable trees. And so fire is a great way to handle that. Oaks and hickories, or even seedlings, are adapted to fire. They have generally thicker bark, where birch seedlings, this particularly is black birch, has real thin bark. So you can run fire through here and really favor your oaks and hickories and set back the birch. So that's kind of a neat way to use fire here. So it's probably a little hard to tell in a picture, but you can see the kind of standing dead there. You have to take my word for it that if you got down in there, there was you'd find some oaks and hickories in there. Bird boxes, we wouldn't do this as a standalone contract, but we oftentimes do add in owl boxes or bird boxes or bat boxes. That's another thing that we do in the woods, and this is just kind of capturing that. Brush piles is something else we'll help pay for. Another good practice in the woods. Deer fence, I like to put this picture in too. So we can help with deer fence. Every time I talk about deer fence, though, I do like to just point out to people, deer fence is a great tool. It keeps deer out of this. In this particular case, it was a forestry project. We knew deer were a problem. We wanted to fence them out and allow that regeneration. but with deer fence, there's pluses and minuses, and this is what NRCS does. We look at the positives and the negatives and help the landowner make decisions. So the negative here with the deer fence is it is also a blockage to other wildlife, right? And sometimes with deer fence, there's a lot of it could potentially push a deer onto your neighbors. That's no fun for your neighbors, something else to consider. And then, also deer fence in the woods in these kind of situations, really you got to stay on top of, because all it takes is one branch or one tree to fall, knock that fence down. You don't notice it for a week or two, and now you got deer in there. So it's definitely a bit of a maintenance thing. And so we always want to make sure we tell landowners that. And the story on this particular deer fence, and it's kind of a sad one, but I like to make the point because I don't think often we think about this. This particular landowner is a phenomenal school teacher, really into managing his woods. He's into rare plants. He actually has a federally listed T&E plant on his property, which is awesome. So what he does though is when we were putting up this deer fence, we knew we wanted to do it. We knew there'd be some negatives. And I remember him calling me a couple days after the fence was up, and there was actually a pileated woodpecker that had hit the fence and was kind of stuck in the fence that he had found walking his fence line the one day. And so that stinks, you don't like to see that, but that's the cost, I still think it's worth it, because you're getting regeneration. This fence will come down. He's not going to keep it up. Once you get to about 15 years, you could probably pull this fence down. But the reality is, there's some negatives that we got to think about when we do some of these practices. So it's another good deer fence story I like to tell is my old boss. He's got a Christmas tree farm. He put the deer fence up for his Christmas trees. He needed to do it, but he is near a stream, and he's found wood turtles and snapping turtles just up against the fence trying to push their way in. And they want to get in there and they can't because of the fences there. So he actually did some turtle nesting mounds and some other things to help offset that. But it's just, these are the kind of things when you make these natural resource choices, you just have to think about. Doesn't mean deer fence isn't good. Doesn't mean it's not a good tool. It's just things we got to think about. Equip wildlife. So these are all subsets of EQIP. Another program we do a lot. This is, do a lot of wildlife work through this subset. Things like planting native warm season grasses. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Native grasses have a lot of good benefits, good for wildlife habitat, good for grassland birds and nesting. So that's common practice. This is kind of a crazy picture. This was a wetland enhancement, wetland restoration, another thing we do. There's 2 times in a year that is good to do wetland work. One of them tends to be August and September. That's probably preferred, but if you can't get in there then, or if it's a wetter year, you can kind of do these things on frozen ground. And so that's kind of what this picture is. He's actually on frozen ground here, but you can see how wet it is. So not many times do we do wetland restorations when it looks like this, but this one did work out pretty good. Here's a picture of a wetland restoration we did. It was a hayfield, and you wouldn't believe this. This picture, the work was done in the fall. This is a picture of the following winter, so one growing season, and this was a hayfield, and this is what it looks like now. So you can get pretty quick results. Really good seed bank, tends to be in these wetter soils, even when they have been in crops or hay for a long time. And it's pretty neat, pretty cool for wildlife habitat. This was essentially just a saturated, like a wet, moist hayfield. Essentially, is what it was, and we just excavated it out a little bit, moved the spoils around, and was able to get this habitat out of it. So it's pretty cool. Similar as this was also relatively newly done. So this was like just after being done, basically. But this was kind of another example. There are 2 geese in the picture. I don't love the fact that the geese are here. They got enough habitat, but it is kind of a cool picture on the farm showing a wetland area. I always like to throw this in. This is some of my favorite work that we do. We do these really neat in-stream habitat projects. A couple contractors we work with that are based out of Montana. And the premise here is that with all the development and activity in our watersheds over the years, our rivers have gotten very broad and very flat. I mean, in general, and so what we do here is we kind of get back in, we kind of tighten them back up. We reestablish what they call it the thoweg. It's basically the center flow of the river. You look at a lot of our rivers now, there is no center flow. It's kind of just flowing uniformly across the channel. So we try to tighten these things kind of back up, and create some riffles and pools, really try to look to enhance the habitat. These are really popular projects for fishing clubs and stuff, as you can imagine. And while it is really neat and they do make awesome trout habitat, some of the The best though is, and what NRCS is more interested in, is really we see huge booms in the macroinvertebrate habitat after we do projects like this. You see nice uplift there, and of course macroinvertebrates and streams kind of feed the whole stream system here. Also good sediment transport, getting things moving, getting cobbles exposed again for the macroinvertebrates, but also even for fish breeding. They can lay their eggs in there, so kind of neat. And so we started here. This is actually a picture on the muskie, and after it was done, it's hard to capture all these in just photos, but this kind of shows you picture broad, flat, kind of shin high water all the way across, and now we've got this nice riffle with a pool below it. Water's really moving. The sound is increased of the river. A lot of people like that too. So it's just kind of neat, really neat projects. Some of my favorite for sure. And we've worked on a bunch of rivers. And I know this is the Northwest New Jersey Rivers Conference. We've worked on a lot of the rivers in Northwest Jersey, from the Raritan, Paulinskill, Pequest, a bunch. Sometimes aquatic organism passage is something else that we look to focus on. So here is just, and again, kind of hard to capture in a picture, so you got to take my word for it a little bit, but this was kind of this slow moving stream here in Morris County. And wildlife, this was a pretty long culvert, and it was disconnected. The fish couldn't pass through here. Wildlife really aren't going to go through this culvert, so we will pull these things out. And this was kind of mid pull. I need to get back and get a finished picture. Unfortunately, I don't have that here, but this was while the work was going on. We were pulling out this pretty sizable culvert here, just taking it out and just reconnecting the stream there from the culvert. So that's something we'll do. I know Bill Levins will recognize this. This is we've got many more since this, but this was one of the original kind of dam removals here in the Muskie, the Finesville, which NRCS was really engaged with Muskinek on Watershed. So we will take dams out. Also a very favorite project of mine. NRCS sits on our statewide dam removal partnership. It's really good to reconnect these aquatic habitats. This is taking this Finesville Dam out. This was the first real major dam on the Muskinek River up from the Delaware, and it was really a blockage for migratory fish. And when this came out, we do have shad now coming up the Muskie. And you guys probably know they've pulled out the Hughesville Dam above this, and working on Warren Glen, Bloomsbury, and then other rivers as well in the mix. So neat projects. One and done. You get that dam out, you're done. River's connected, back to the way it should be. So it's really neat. Expensive, hard to do. It takes a lot of partners to get these out. I mean, NRCS, we never tackle these things even by ourselves. We always bring in partners and stuff. But talk about environmental uplift. I think you'd be hard pressed to find many other projects that have the environmental uplift that taking a dam out has. So really neat. Then we have some specialized wildlife that we focus on here. So we do this through our Working Lands for Wildlife program, and it is kind of a subset of EQIP. There's 7 federal species that were called out nationally to focus on with this program. New Jersey has 2 of them. One of them is the bog turtle, the other, and we'll touch on that, and the golden warbler is the other. We also have 2 state level species that were identified, and one of them is quail and the other is black duck. And this is a partnership between U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NRCS, really at the national level. New Jersey Fish and Wildlife is real involved in this. We have some other good partners involved, depending on what the species is, doing this, helping us do this work. So it's pretty neat. We'll talk about this in a second. So golden warbler is one. I'm sure you probably heard about it. I know, some people get a little bit agita over these types of projects. And I get it. It's scary. We got to be smart about where we put these things, but really, really some neat projects. So it's golden warbler is kind of an umbrella species that if you make their habitat, you benefit over 40 other species. It's found, where we're really focused is Georgia all the way up to New York. It's really declining. It's a early successional habitat species, and that's what you'll find if you really dig into a lot of these species that are declining, that are federally and state listed. They're tied to early successional habitat. It's a species that's been petitioned for federal listing. We're down to about 24 breeding pairs in New Jersey. We did confirm a couple new golden wings using our sites, which was really cool. We try to stay a little more in a high elevation. I mentioned that their habitat's good for some other things like grouse and turkey and woodcock. We do have to pay attention to deer and invasives where we do this. The other big thing that that's good about this, and I mentioned it kind of briefly, is we're kind of transitioning. New Jersey historically has been oak hickory forest type, and we're kind of slowly converting over. Since we really haven't done much with our woods, in 100+ years, we're kind of slowly converting over to these situations where it's oak hickory overstory with beech birch maple understory. So beech birch maple, that's like a northern hardwood forest type that you'll find in the Adirondacks, right? And pretty much anyone we talk to us, U.S. Forest Service, or anyone will basically tell you that's not the kind of forest type that we want in New Jersey in the face of climate change. And we're looking at forest resiliency. Also, northern hardwoods, well, there's nothing wrong with them. They're much less diverse from a wildlife standpoint as well. So it's kind of nice. Oak hickory are definitely more kind of a better forest type for our situation here in New Jersey. But they're disturbance dependent. So that's why we got to do some work. So this is the range. It basically follows the Appalachians here. And what's kind of cool as a wildlife biologist, we could do great things in New Jersey. We could do great things in Warren County or Sussex County or Hunterdon County. But the reality is, like, if you really want to move the needle on wildlife, you need a lot of states, a lot of areas working together. You need to manage on a regional scale. And so this map's a little misleading. It tips up into New York too, but basically this is the whole region that's getting focused on for this. And so it is a multi-state effort, which is pretty cool. And they're getting some really awesome results from it. This is our focus area in New Jersey. Our highest priority is in those kind of green bubbly areas there. That's our forest core areas where, that's one of the things with these species. They kind of like young forest patches amongst mature forest. So, you want a 5 to 10 acre patch surrounded by mature forest. So that's what we're kind of targeting there. And then if that's really the Goldwing area, is the bubbly blue area. We do like forestry for the birds, where less intensive, but other type activities, if you're inside the blue line, that can still be a part of the program, but, are not. And the biggest reason why there's still value in those areas kind of inside that blue line, but much less forest cover there. It's more developed. It's basically what you're seeing is the bubbly areas are the ridges that are wooded in North Jersey. And then the lower sections are more kind of ag or developed. So this is a site that we did about a 40-acre cut on. It's called Longwood Lake. It was across from Picatinny Arsenal. It's a nice private land. You can see all the forest cover there. Beautiful woods. This site was just amazing. And it was so we kind of opened up like a 40-acre area. This was what it looked like after it was the end of the first growing season. I think I got to closer up. This is the second growing season. So you can see, it basically, if you would have gone into that first spring, there was, nothing. It was just the trees had been cut, whatever. And then this is all the regeneration that we were getting up there. No deer fence, no nothing. It's just good site location. We knew it was going to be good. And we're getting great results out of it. And this is what happens if you walk in the woods a lot in North Jersey and you're in these close canopy shaded areas. You see there's really not much going on plant wise. Pennsylvania sedge, maybe, there's a few species there's and there's some important ones, but in comparison, if you look down here and you see all the different species that are coming up and the diversity, it's pretty awesome to kind of reset that. And then this is really what you're striving for 20 years later. Now, this was a site that had a goldwing on it, but this is the kind of habitat that we're looking for come 20 years forward on these sites. Just picture the goldwing. The other one's bog turtle. A lot of you may know about this already. New Jersey is really a stronghold for bog turtles. Us in Pennsylvania. They're a very small, federally threatened turtle, lives in emergent wetlands. Again, kind of an early successional species. If these wetlands grow up into red maple swamps, they're going to disappear. So this is something where, they like these emergent, open, sunny wetlands. And actually, I'll say this because this is the Northwest New Jersey River Conference. I'll say you can argue New Jersey is the most important state for bog turtle, period, right? Like I said, maybe Pennsylvania is there a little bit with us. But within that, if you say New Jersey is the most important state, I would easily say that Northwest New Jersey has the most sites and is the most important for bog turtle, within the state. There's some sites down in Salem County stuff, but the bastion in New Jersey is in Northwest New Jersey. So really, Northwest New Jersey is the most important area for bog turtle, period. I would say you could absolutely make that argument. So Sussex, Warren County in particular. So pretty neat that we have a species that's so dependent upon New Jersey to survive here. These are the different counties they're found in. Again, regional effort. You can see where they're working on it. Again, this is a good example of kind of their habitat, sunny, early successional. Bog turtles are kind of neat. Well, actually sometimes graze livestock. So 90% of the time I want farmers to pull their cows out of wetland areas. But this is the one exception where sometimes we do want cows in a wetland to do some controlled grazing here to help kind of keep down the woody vegetation. If you ever saw a bog turtle before, they're super cute. They're pretty small. Got these cool orange spots on their neck. There's a picture looking down on it. And then you can see it. Now, I will preface and say those two in my hand are juveniles, but they're about 75% of the size. So they don't get much bigger than that. And I got two of them in my hand there. So they're pretty neat. Another cool species to work on here. Bobwhite quail, I mentioned. I'll just hit on these quickly. So that's, species we're focused on in South Jersey. I think you all know, probably heard quail, really disappeared from New Jersey. So some efforts trying to get them back, trying to get their habitat back. This is kind of similar habitat that they would like in the pinelands. So I'm going to give you an example of that. American black duck, it's basically a mallard is what it is, but there's some focus on this species as well as important species. And really, this is neat, but these are kind of the priority watersheds for that. We kind of did a lot of this work already. Those shallow wetlands I was showing you before, that's a good fit for these. The bays are real important. Delaware Bay is important for black duck. So yeah, we're already kind of doing some of those habitats. This was a project some of you may know about Hudson Farm. It's a big hunting preserve in Byram, North Jersey there. And this was a project I got to get some more pictures for because I was out there mid-construction. But you see these ditches here. This is a perfect site to do some wetland pools. We plugged up these ditches and really did a nice wetland restoration here on this site at Hudson Farm. So that was a black duck project we had. We do easements too. So Wetland Reserve, this is a different program now from EQIP, Wetland Reserve easement program. So here's where we're actually going. We'll find wetlands like, some of you may know about modified agricultural wetlands. If you look at the DEP wetland map, that's kind of what we're after here. We're after wetlands that are currently farmed that really shouldn't be, would be better restored back to wetlands. So we'll go in and we can actually purchase an easement on these wetlands. And we can take, for every acre of wetland we can take 1 acre of upland buffer around it to protect it. So pretty popular program. We get a few of these easements a year. Again, Northwest New Jersey, a lot of easements. Probably 30 or so easements we have for WRE up in your area here. So it works out pretty good. We also do easements for bog turtles, which is pretty neat. That's a great way to protect bog turtle, is to put an easement on bog turtle habitat and know that forever that'll be protected and we have access to it. Bog turtles don't grow wings, right? They don't move easy. So if we can protect some of their habitat and even when the landowner sells, we know that there's an easement in perpetuity that will always allow access to that site to us. And then, through us, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, it's pretty neat. So you can see some of the costs there that we pay. And those costs fluctuate from year to year, cost per acre. We basically break that up by ag and wetland. So if it's prime, ag and corn right now, you get a higher rate. If it's woods or kind of not being farmed right now, then you get a little bit of a lesser rate. But again, don't get too held up on that. We got a couple real big ones too. Franklin Parker down in South Jersey, New Jersey Conservation Foundation, good partner of ours. That's a big easement we have down there. And then the one in the north that's the biggest is one I worked on heavily. It was one of my big projects when I first started as biologist, was Duke Farm. So we own a couple WRP easements, WRE easements at Duke. So there's Duke Farms right there. So let's see if my cursor works here. So hopefully you can see it. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but this yellow right here, that's a big easement down here in their lowlands, which is good. This is protected. We have a floodplain easement too. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's got like 12 feet of water, I heard from the Duke guys in Ida. So it's good that that's kind of protected in wetlands now. And then up here by the farm barn, they have a wetland as well. So this is actually a Duke, some equipment working on the wetland restoration there. Some pools there we did. It's pretty neat. I want to bring this up. So that floodplain at Duke was part of this program, Emergency Watershed Protection Program. So this is a big one. This is one that we actually do get municipalities involved in, and this program only comes around after a disaster. So we had a big sign up for this program after Sandy, and guess what? Now we've got a pretty big sign up going on right now after Ida. So this is something where municipalities actually approach us, and it can be on private land or can be public land. We're really targeting kind of these storm emergency fixes here. So stream bank stabilization, getting debris out of streams, fixing and eroded banks. We did a neat thing in Sandy where we helped clean out a lot of those in Monmouth County. You may know there's a lot of these freshwater lakes kind of right. It's like ocean, boardwalk, road, and then freshwater lake. And those freshwater lakes are important stormwater storage and stuff for those towns. And when Sandy pushed in, it pushed a bunch of sand and stuff into those lakes. So we were able to help clean those out. So those are the kind of things we can do with EWP here. So this is going on right now. I think I'm on the next slide. I'll talk about that. But these are just some pictures I took just from the other day of being out at a couple of these sites. You can see in the background the eroded stream banks. You can see these trees down here, the huge deposition piles in here. So, woody debris is good in streams, no doubt, and we probably need more of it in some places. But when you get in these situations, and this program tends to be utilized a lot in kind of more urban settings, where you can't have this kind of debris that's going to cause all sorts of problems and flood people out. And so this is what we can kind of help clean up. This is one. This was that first one. I think this was Ridgewood. I think we were in, and then this one is actually the Capulon Creek in Hunterdon County. You see this huge log jam here, and if this is allowed to stay, it'll cause a big channel avulsion at some point where the stream will just cut a new channel. Now that is part of the natural process, no doubt, and that might be fine if you're in a naturalized setting, but if you've got property or houses nearby or whatever, this is a concern that we got to take a look at and address. This is something, so I wanted to throw a couple things in that we don't do. So we don't do something like this. This poor person, the whole basement wall got pushed in Ida, and this would be something more for FEMA. So this isn't really NRCS. This would be FEMA, but we get more into these naturalized kind of situations, streams and banks. This is kind of a mix of the two. So this again is the Capulon Creek in Hunterdon County. So you see this, you see that road debris that's down in the stream. You see all these debris on the bridge. These are things that you can apply for funding to help us, help you get this cleaned up. Something with this, so we can help with the stuff in the stream and the debris in the bridge. But I just think this picture is crazy. Look at that guardrail in the back and how bad that got bended out by the river there. So that's not really something. This isn't the road and the guardrail stuff. That's not so much something NRCS would help with. I think that would be more FEMA as well, but I just kind of threw it in there because it's a cool picture and we can help with some of the stuff that's going on in the stream. So we've extended the sign up to December 1st for this program. So again, this is more municipality driven because you have to have a municipal sponsor for this program. So, this is something that municipalities are definitely a part of. Right now, the disaster has been declared in 11 counties. So you can see the list there: Bergen, Gloucester, Hunterdon, Middlesex, Passaic, Somerset, Essex, Hudson, Mercer, Union, and Morris. So we're getting a ton of people signed up. We got 26 municipalities already signed up that we're working with, and more coming in every day. So it was pretty bad, as you probably know, if you're in North Jersey. So yeah, I'm doing good here on time. So I'm at the end here. This is kind of my summary. I just, wanted to point out there's a lot of different ways, NRCS, I'm going to say help public and private landowners there. There are other programs too. I didn't even touch on when it comes to, I just kind of hit our major programs, but there's even more. We have the CSP program, which rewards good stewards and can give you payments, and farm service agencies got the CRP program you might have heard about. Just too much to kind of get into here, but you come in our office, talk to people, we can help you out with that for sure. Another good thing we can bring to the table, I mentioned with the dam removals. Once you get involved in dam removals, you end up, you need partners involved. It's not any one person can deal with that. We're good. And not just even that, if I come out to your property and there's a cool wetland project, but I think, U.S. Fish and Wildlife can help, bring something to the table in this project, or another good nonprofit, we can bring them in and kind of connect everybody and get a good project out of it. And again, the most important is really to reach out to your local field office here. So again, I'll leave this up for a second here. This is, again, the map kind of reminds you, if you're in Northwest Jersey, chances are good you're probably either in Frenchtown or Hackettstown up here. And then these are the office phone numbers right here. So I can leave it up at that. And with that, I am done.
Great. Thank you so much, Evan. That was excellent.
No problem.
We're going to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Let's see. Frank left a comment there. Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'll bring up one question that I think I get asked a bunch is sign-up deadlines. What are they? Do they matter?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Bridget. So if we basically take applications all year round for these programs, so you can come in anytime and talk to the offices, and I would say by and large most everything the sign up tends to be. So what happens is you sign up all year round, and then we will collect applications at one point, kind of batch them up, and that's when we actually look at them and we rank them. So if you signed up for Equip Wildlife, you get ranked against other people that signed up for Equip Wildlife, or if you signed up for doing some livestock stuff, if you're a livestock farmer, you'll get ranked against other livestock farms, and we have different ways we kind of tease out the applications. So we tend to do that in October is when we kind of have our sign up cutoff, and then we kind of work on the applications in the fall and through the winter, and then typically contracts will be awarded in the spring. Is how it works. Now, some programs have a couple, different signups. You saw EWP's December. I can say that's a good. I can say this is that with us getting $5 to $6 million in our Equip program every year, generally we can fund all the good projects that should be funded. So we do pretty well there. With getting projects funded. So if you do sign up and you have a good project, you've got a pretty high chance of getting funded, assuming your project's eligible and it's going to move the needle for some environmental stuff. So yeah, so it's good.
Great.
I just add to that too. So one exception is when I mentioned the forestry plans and the wildlife plans, some of those plans that we can help you with. We do fund, those are relatively inexpensive, and we do tend to fund all of those. So if you came in for a forestry plan, I would say that you basically have a 100% chance to get funded. Once you get your forestry plan, then you would come back and sign up for Equip Forestry to actually implement the plan. And then that gets a little more competitive, to get funding to implement it. But all those plans, we basically fund 100% of the applications we get on the plans.
I'll just ask questions until anyone else puts one. Here's another one that I like. What if you're a landowner, you lease land to a farmer, and you want to kind of put more conservation practices on your land? Does the farmer have to sign up, or can the landowner?
Yeah, good question. So either one of them can absolutely sign up. What we have a couple stopgaps in place too. Like so farmers can sign up, but if farmers sign up and they're going to do a structural practice, something that's going to be around. So, if they're doing cover crop or vegetative, we don't really worry about it. But if they're going to put up, say, an extreme example would be they want to put up one of those HOAPs, those cow buildings, we basically have the farmer make sure they have a sign off by the landowner to ensure that they know that building is going to be put in on their property. And if you're a landowner, I think it would be good courtesy to talk to the farmer, about maybe what you're thinking and maybe signing up. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing to stop a landowner from signing up. That's sometimes we've run into it, like the native warm season grass plantings where, say a farmer's planting corn and a landowner is like, I really want to do something better for wildlife. I want to put in warm season grasses, for grassland birds, let's say. And, you can sell that, you can make mulch off it, but it's not going to be as lucrative for the farmer to do warm season grasses. And he may not be set up for it with his equipment and all that. So those are things that you want to think about. You do want to have that discussion with the farmer. I do say that, at the end of the day, I mean, the landowner's the owner, and we do like to see these things work out. But there's been some times where there's been a little button heads, from what the farmer might want to do to what the landowner wants to do. So it's all, there's definitely some give and take there with the landowners too. But most of the time it works out and we figure something out. Or, maybe we don't put all the fields in warm season grasses. Maybe we put a couple of the lesser productive fields in warm season grasses and keep some of it in grain. So there's ways to work around that. And NRCS can even help you with that kind of stuff. We can help you kind of walk through what these options for you. So I mean, we want to negotiate with your farmer, but we can help you, kind of come up with a good solution. Yeah.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another question. Let's say someone's interested in buffer work. They put their application in September. When would they typically expect that buffer to get planted? Like what is for a project like that?
Yeah, a project like that, I mean, at the quickest then, I think we were talking a little bit how you'd be looking at a contract in the spring. So theoretically, if it's just a buffer and you have the means to plant it and, there's nothing that says you couldn't plant that buffer that fall, Some of the engineering stuff that we get involved with is a little more timely, or if permits come into play, on some of these buildings. So, if you're going to do like a pretty major construction project that may require permits, you may be a couple years out before that shovel hits the ground. But something like, a grass planting or something. Well, and even that, I'll be honest, the buffer would be, I stand by the fact that you could theoretically get that in by the fall. But I think, even if you're doing a warm season grass planting or a pollinator habitat, we do a lot of those kind of things. There is some site prep that goes into that, and that takes some time. So if you're going to do like a pollinator habitat planting, you might need to spend that kind of first growing season, doing some site prep and stuff. And then you'd really not want to plant it till the next year. So, yeah, so it depends on practices, but that's typically you can implement things as soon as your contract's signed. You can implement things. It just depends what it is and how quickly you can get it in. If that answers your question, Bridget.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No one else has any questions for Evan? He's a wealth of knowledge. Just jump in.
Well, definitely. Hopefully could you share your email address again? Thank you. Yeah, I can put that in the chat for sure here. Let me do that now if I can get my mouse over there. I think I can type a message to you guys. Or you know what? Let me just see here if I can.
If it's not letting you.
Yeah, something's going on there. Sorry, close your eyes here. We're going quick, but I'll get that back up. I think that was like the second slide. All these fancy conferencing things Bridget got it. Nice.
There you go.
All right. Yep, that's good. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. And like I said, unfortunately, now as a state resource conservationist, as biologist, I was in the field constantly out all the time. And now I'm more on these team meetings and stuff, but I'm always happy to talk technical. I still get out a little bit, and I'll definitely be able to help you and direct you to who you need to talk to, depending on what you're interested in for sure.
Well, I really appreciate you making the time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to be here. And yeah, hopefully everybody was informative. And it was good.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Yeah, and looks like you guys have a good conference ahead of you too. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. And thanks, Cindy. Appreciate that too. So enjoy yourselves. And feel free to hit me up, or if you think of something later or come up with anything. And our website's pretty good too. You can just Google it, NRCS or NRCS New Jersey, really probably NRCS New Jersey will take you to our website. And there's a lot of good information there. You can definitely find out where you're going. There's some good technical resources on there and stuff. So, so that's a good way to get a hold of us as well. So,
certainly.
Cool.
So it looks like from here, everyone, we're going to move into 15 minutes of a virtual expo and networking. So if you want to try out those interesting features, feel free. And then I guess the second workshops will reconvene at 3:45. Cool. Thank you so much, Evan. Again,
no problem.
We love working with you. Thank you.
Same here. And thanks for thanks for having me. It was good.